and with us they modified to suit the American conditions, and President Wilson set up the very first Tavistock methodology techniques for polling at manufacturing so-called public opinion. They also thought Wilson set up a secret body of managers. This was the first time this ever happened in America. Of course, since Wilson happened.
All right, let's talk about the scientific dictatorship and these secret managers when we get back, because now they're not even secret. I mean, we get the SPP, North American Union documents, and it's a scientific board with a corporate board telling the government what to do, and the government clicks its heels and says, yes, sir. Look, we know what the British Empire model has done around the world. And it's a system of control. And Dr. John Coleman has written extensively on it. I found his research to be excellent. So you were getting into these committees of experts, these shadow governments that are now out in the open. It's now not denied. You'd write about this stuff 30, 40 years ago. People would laugh. Now it's somewhat public. I want to speak about how those organizations, the command structure that you've identified, and then I want to get into how's their operation going for them, because I see them having success, but they're being revealed more and more, and Brzezinski and others have said that they believe they're starting to get into trouble.
Well, I think they've overstepped their bounds as far as being too confident. I think they felt they'd progressed to such a degree that they could now come more and more out into the open. And I think that was a mistake. You know, going back to the war years, this is when they really came into their own through the strategic bombing survey and through things like the program surveys for the Department of Agriculture, from which major studies were undertaken in the techniques of mass persuasion. You would never think to look under the Agricultural Department for something called mass persuasion. I don't think you will unless you were given the key. But I was told to look over there, and that by the late, great Senator Irvin, who helped me so much in my constitutional work. And there I find that they had all kinds of things hidden under the agricultural book. For instance, there was a guy called Derwin Cartwright who wrote a textbook document titled Some Principles of Mass Persuasion. And these principles are still in use today. And another major agency for shaping public opinion was the Office of War Information, which, of course, has fallen away. But this is just an indication of how these people started out. They started out from a position of great secrecy. And many of their committees and secret organizations were very difficult to discover because they hid them under different bills in the congressional records, which had nothing to do with the subject that you're looking for. I know when I wrote my book on the Constitution, I was told by Senator Irvin to be diligent and to look through all the congressional records I could find. And to date I've read, and I say read like you read a book at a good British university, and I've studied on these things intently, and I've covered so far 37,000 pages, which I think is something of a record. I doubt whether there's anybody else in the country that's done that. And as a result of that, I've gained some rather unique insights into the Constitution. And one of the big things I find today that is being an open sore, festering sore in the United States is the fact that so many wars are promulgated without a declaration of war being given by the Congress. That's a joint session of the House and the Senate. And I think many of the evils that have arisen from that are plaguing us today more than ever. It's not per se, it's not a subject that's, gone away. It's all right to talk about it today because it's very much in sync with what is happening.
But this is good news. I mean, everybody I talk to, not just my own research that I respect and my own gut sense of history, but the statements by the controllers themselves that are in, an internal memorandum, not secret, but hidden in plain view, they are talking about facing more and more crises, and they understand that they are starting to lose control. I think that if people aren't aware of the manipulation, then they're powerless to fight it. But no matter how sophisticated brainwashing and manipulation is, once you're aware of it, and start looking for it, then instead of brainwashing you and pacifying you, it irritates you. It actually spurs you like a dog barking next door to go tell your neighbor to, take it inside. I mean, I see this really starting to turn. The tide is turning.
I absolutely concur with that. I think very much so. And I think more and more is coming to the realization of American people that their substance, their money has been wasted on wars that they've not certified or given their assent to. I mean, the last time we had a declaration of war, I think, was when Truman declared war. I think that was the last one. And then, of course, the Second World War was also, but that preceded Truman. Anyway, those are the few times that we've had a declaration of war, which is a 5-step complicated program that has to be taken. In fact, the Founding Fathers, they argued and struggled with that than they did with anything else in the Constitution. I've been reading some of the statements they made, and...
Well, stay there. Long segment coming up. That was a short segment. Let's talk about how big a deal it was and all the checks and balances involved in declaring war versus what is done today.
Some folks are born made to wait to fly.
Dr. John Coleman is our guest. We're going back to him in just a moment, and I'm going to throw out some more topical issues, looking at this global empire, what its goals are, what the world will look like if they succeed, how he sees the current battle playing out. He's been very accurate in the past in forecasting what he thought would happen in the future. So we'll be talking to him again in a moment. Doc, give us a website for folks that want to be able to check out your books or your writings or some of the other materials that you have.
Well, our website is very complete. It's quite a substantial website, and you'll find everything you need to know about me and my work up there, all of the books. And it's very simple. It is Coleman, Coleman, 300.com, Coleman300.com. And everything you could want to know about me, and all of my books are up there, as well as the number to call to order.
Absolutely. Now, continuing in the last 24 minutes or so we have left, in layman's terms for folks, from your deep study over 40 years, what is the globalist end-game plan? What is their final operation? Because from their own documents I've read, it's establish a world government, isolate the individual, break up the family, and then through covert GMO food, poisons in the water and drugs, basically anesthetize, sterilize, and reduce world population.
That's correct. That's absolutely right. There's all of those and more. For instance, some of the companies, like Monsanto, are producing seed that you can't harvest some of it and then plant it again next year. You have to buy new seed all the time, and the shelf life of it is pretty short. Things of that nature. In other words, the supply of food will be lessened to such an extent that, it was their senior statesman, Lord Bertrand Russell, who said that the world is populated with too many useless eaters. That's the likes of us, you and me. And he said, something has to be done about it. He said, what we need to do is reintroduce a plague that will happen every now and then and wipe away at least 20 million of the population, which he called was surplus to our requirements. And then he said we have a manageable population, will not only be subservient, but very easy to control. They will be dependent on the government for everything. So that basically is the blueprint for the new world order, one world government.
Please continue. Please continue.
A docile population, and then they in turn are controlled by, I would call, the top dogs in the Committee of 300. And there are many of them. In America we have some families of families, and of course in England you have the royalty. Some of the old European kings and queens are still alive and still controlling this body as well. And it's a very comprehensive machine. It's rather like a manufacturing company. At the top you have the CEO, and then you have the board of directors. Then you have the upper management. Then you have the middle management. Then you have all the controllers on the shop floors, and so on and so forth, right down to the lowest individual working in the packing department to ship the goods. And this is really the format for the new world order that they hope to achieve.
And they all brag about it, they all write about it, and talk about what mindless scum we are. And from my research, but correct me if I'm wrong and expand on it, these are the ultimate control freaks and the ultimate jealous, envious people, to the point of they want to control the future, they only want their progeny to go into the future, and they hate healthy, happy people. They hate individual wealth and middle classes. They hate... I mean, their true pleasure is death and sickness and illness and people being dumbed down.